My name is Alice Norwood and I'm 28 years old. What I'm about to tell you happened when I was 19, but it's all coming back to haunt my family now in ways none of us saw coming. Uncle Austin was always the golden child. 6'2", charming smile, successful businessman who owned 3 auto shops across the city. Every family gathering, he'd roll up in his gleaming Mercedes, designer watch catching the light as he hugged everyone like he was running for mayor. My grandmother would light up whenever he walked in the room. "That boy's got it all figured out," she'd say, beaming with pride. "Smart, successful, knows how to treat people right." I used to think the same thing. Uncle Austin was only 12 years older than me, more like a cool big brother than an uncle. He'd slip me $20 bills when my parents weren't looking, take me and my cousins out for expensive dinners, always asking about school and my dreams of becoming a nurse. The night everything changed was Thanksgiving 2015. I was home from my second year of nursing school, stressed about finals but excited to see family. The house was packed, aunts, uncles, cousins, neighbors who'd been adopted into our chaos. Uncle Austin had brought his girlfriend Hannah, a sweet teacher who seemed genuinely smitten with him. I remember thinking how perfect they looked together, how lucky she was. If only I'd known what was coming, what he was capable of when no one was watching. The golden boy had a shadow side that would shatter everything I thought I knew about family, trust, and the people we're supposed to protect. The evening started like any other family gathering. Aunt Rita's mac and cheese was demolished within minutes. Uncle James was holding court with his terrible jokes, and the kids were running around the house like tiny tornadoes. I was helping my mom in the kitchen when Uncle Austin appeared with a bottle of expensive wine. "For my favorite niece," he said, that trademark smile spreading across his face. "You're old enough now, right? Don't tell your mama I said that." My mom laughed, waving her hand dismissively. "She's in college, Austin. A little wine won't kill her. Just don't let Grandma see." He poured me a generous glass of red wine that probably cost more than my textbooks. I felt grown up, included in the adult conversations for once. Uncle Austin raised his glass in a toast. "To family," he said, his eyes holding mine just a beat too long. "The people who love you no matter what." I drank deeply, savoring the rich taste and the warmth spreading through my chest. Within 20 minutes something felt wrong. The room started spinning gently like I was on a slow carousel. My words came out thick and clumsy and my limbs felt heavy. "I think I need to sit down," I mumbled to my cousin Tanya, who was chatting about her new job. "Girl, you lightweight," she laughed. "That wine hitting you hard already?" But this wasn't normal drunk. I'd had wine before, beer at college parties. This felt different, like my brain was wrapped in cotton while my body moved through molasses. Uncle Austin appeared beside me, his hand gentle on my elbow. "Come on, baby girl. Let's get you some fresh air upstairs where it's quiet." I barely remember walking up those stairs. My legs felt like they belonged to someone else, and Uncle Austin's strong arm around my waist was the only thing keeping me upright. He guided me to the guest bedroom, the one with the soft blue walls and my grandmother's old quilts. "Just need to lay down for a minute," I slurred, collapsing onto the bed. The ceiling seemed to pulse above me, and I couldn't understand why I felt so sick from one glass of wine. Uncle Austin sat on the edge of the bed, his hand stroking my hair in what should have been a comforting gesture. But something in his touch made my skin crawl, some primal part of my brain screaming danger even through the chemical fog. "You're so beautiful, Alice," he whispered, his voice different now. Lower. Predatory. "I've been watching you grow up, become a woman. You don't even know how special you are." I tried to speak, to tell him to stop, but the words came out as barely audible whispers. My body felt paralyzed, trapped between consciousness and complete helplessness. His hands started moving and I wanted to scream, to fight, to run, but I couldn't make my limbs obey. "Shoo," he murmured when I managed a weak whimper. "Just relax. Uncle Austin is going to take good care of you. This is our special secret, okay?" The door suddenly burst open and my cousin Brandon stumbled in, clearly having had a few drinks himself. "Yo, Uncle Mark, Grandma's looking for you downstairs." He stopped mid-sentence, his eyes taking in the scene. Uncle Austin jumped back like he'd been burned. "She got sick from the wine. I was just making sure she was okay." Brandon's eyes narrowed, suspicious but not quite understanding what he'd interrupted. Brandon stood in the doorway, swaying slightly but alert enough to sense something wasn't right. The tension in the room was thick enough to cut with a knife, and Uncle Austin was smoothing down his shirt with shaky hands. "Why is she so messed up from one glass of wine?" Brandon asked, his voice carrying that edge he got when he was about to start trouble. "Alice can usually hold her liquor better than half the men in this family." Uncle Austin forced out a laugh that sounded hollow and wrong. "You know how these college girls are. Probably hasn't been eating right, studying too hard. Wine hit her system all wrong." I wanted to scream to tell Brandon what was happening, but my tongue felt like sandpaper and my vision kept sliding in and out of focus. All I could manage was a weak groan that Uncle Austin quickly covered. "See? She's just sick. Food poisoning maybe. I should get her some water." Brandon stepped closer and I could smell the beer on his breath mixed with his cologne. He looked down at me with genuine concern, and for a moment I thought he might piece it together. But Uncle Austin was already moving, positioning himself between Brandon and the bed. "Come on, man. Let's let her sleep it off. You know how embarrassed she'll be if everyone sees her like this." That was the hook that worked. Brandon nodded slowly, his protective instincts kicking in the wrong direction. "Yeah, you're right. Poor girl would be mortified. Grandma would never let her hear the end of it." As they both turned to leave, Uncle Austin looked back at me one more time. The expression on his face wasn't concern or family love. It was a promise. A threat. This wasn't over. "I'll check on her later," he said softly. "Make sure she's feeling better." I woke up the next morning in my childhood bedroom, still wearing my clothes from the night before but with no memory of how I got there. My head felt like it had been split open with an axe, and my mouth tasted like I'd been chewing on cotton balls soaked in regret. My mom was sitting in the chair by my window, her face creased with worry. "Baby, you scared us last night. Brandon said you got real sick from that wine Austin gave you." The memories came flooding back in nauseating waves. The room spinning. Uncle Austin's hands. His whispered words. The way he looked at me when Brandon interrupted. My stomach lurched and I barely made it to the bathroom before throwing up what little was left in my system. "Mom," I whispered when I came back, my voice shaky and small. "Something's not right. I only had one glass of wine. One glass shouldn't have done that to me." She smoothed my hair back from my sweaty forehead. "Honey, sometimes when you're stressed and not eating right, alcohol hits you different. Your uncle was worried sick. He stayed up half the night checking on you, making sure you were breathing okay." The thought of him coming into my room while I was unconscious made my skin crawl. How many times had he been there? What else had happened that I couldn't remember? "I want to go to the hospital," I said suddenly. "I want to get tested. This wasn't normal drunk mama. Something was wrong with that wine." Her face changed, confusion mixing with the first seeds of alarm. "Alice, what are you saying? You think Austin would hurt you? That boy loves you like his own daughter." "Please," I begged, tears starting to fall. "Something happened. I can feel it. I need to know." The hospital was cold and sterile, nothing like the warm chaos of Thanksgiving dinner the night before. My mom held my hand as we waited in the emergency room, her face a mask of controlled worry. She'd stopped asking questions after I broke down crying in the car, but I could feel her anxiety radiating like heat. Dr. Patricia Henderson was a middle-aged black woman with kind eyes and a no-nonsense attitude. She listened without judgment as I explained what I remembered and what I didn't. Her expression grew more serious with each detail. "We're going to run a full tox screen," she said gently. "If someone gave you something without your knowledge, we need to know what it was. The sooner we test, the better chance we have of finding traces in your system." The blood draw felt like validation and violation all at once. As we waited for results, my mom finally asked the question that had been burning between us. "Alice, are you absolutely sure about this? Accusing Austin of drugging you? Do you understand what that means for our family?" Before I could answer, Dr. Henderson returned with a folder in her hands and an expression I'll never forget. Professional compassion mixed with barely contained anger. "Ms. Norwood, I need you both to sit down," she said quietly. "The test results show significant levels of rohypnol in your bloodstream. That's a drug commonly known as a date rape drug. It causes memory loss, muscle relaxation, and can leave victims unable to resist or remember sexual assault." My mother's face went pale as paper. That's impossible. Austin would never." "Mrs. Norwood," Dr. Henderson interrupted gently, "someone drugged your daughter. This wasn't an accident or a reaction to alcohol. This was deliberate, calculated, and illegal. We need to call the police. The room started spinning again, but this time it wasn't from drugs. It was from the crushing weight of truth. The police interview was brutal. Detective Sarah Rodriguez was thorough but kind, walking me through every detail I could remember while my mother sat in stunned silence. When I mentioned Uncle Austin, I watched my mom's world crumble in real time. "We'll need to question him," Detective Rodriguez said matter-of-factly. "And we'll want to test any remaining wine from that bottle if it's still available." My mom spoke up for the first time in an hour. "Officer, I know this looks bad, but Austin isn't capable of something like this. There has to be another explanation. Maybe someone else at the dinner." "Mom, stop," I said, my voice stronger than it had been all day. "You saw him give me that wine. You saw him take me upstairs. You know it was him." The drive home was silent, but I could hear my mother's mind racing. By the time we pulled into our driveway, she'd made her decision. "Alice, baby, I need you to think real hard about this. Your uncle has 3 businesses, employees depending on him. Your grandmother's heart is already weak. This kind of accusation, it'll destroy everything. What about what he destroyed in me?" I shot back, anger finally overriding the shock. "What about what he tried to do? What he would have done if Brandon hadn't walked in?" She took my hands in hers, tears streaming down her face. "I believe something happened. I do. But are you sure it was intentional? Maybe he made a mistake, grabbed the wrong bottle, didn't realize." "Listen to yourself," I whispered. "You're making excuses for him already." That night my phone started ringing. First my grandmother, then my aunts, then my cousins. Somehow word had gotten out, but the story being told wasn't about Uncle Austin drugging me. It was about me being confused, traumatized from college stress, and making up stories that could ruin a good man's life. The family had chosen their side. And it wasn't mine. Within 48 hours, Uncle Austin had hired the best defense attorney money could buy. Richard Steinberg was known for getting wealthy men out of uncomfortable situations, and he came armed with a strategy that was both brilliant and disgusting. The narrative they spun was masterful in its cruelty. I was the troubled college student struggling with grades and drinking too much. I'd had consensual encounters with older men before, lies, but who would verify? I was jealous of Uncle Austin's success and looking for a way to extort money from the family's golden boy. "My client is devastated that his beloved niece would make such accusations," Steinberg announced at a press conference that made local news. "Mr. Davis has never been anything but a loving, supportive uncle who was simply trying to help a young woman who clearly had too much to drink." The wine bottle had mysteriously disappeared from my grandmother's house. Security cameras at Uncle Austin's businesses showed him there all afternoon before dinner, creating an alibi timeline. Character witnesses lined up to testify about his generosity, his contributions to the community, his spotless reputation. Meanwhile, my own family was quietly pressuring me to drop the charges. Grandmother called crying, begging me not to destroy the family over a misunderstanding. Cousins who'd been like siblings suddenly weren't returning my calls. Aunts who'd helped raise me now looked at me with suspicious eyes. "Think about Hannah," my mother pleaded during one of our increasingly tense conversations. "That sweet girl is planning to marry him. You want to ruin her life too." But the worst part was watching Uncle Austin himself. He showed up to family events with wounded eyes and a martyred expression, playing the role of the falsely accused uncle who still loved his confused niece despite her hurtful lies. "I forgive her," he told anyone who would listen. "She's clearly going through something and I just want her to get the help she needs." 8 months later, the case finally went to trial. By then, Uncle Austin had transformed from accused predator to wounded family patriarch. His legal team had crafted a narrative so compelling that even I sometimes wondered if I was going crazy. They brought in medical experts who testified that Rohypnol could be accidentally ingested, that perhaps someone at the party had been carrying it for legitimate medical reasons. It was prescribed for severe insomnia in other countries. They suggested I might have taken something myself and forgotten, or that a college friend had slipped me party drugs as a prank. My own family members testified as character witnesses for Uncle Austin. My grandmother, frail and weeping, told the court about his generosity, how he'd helped pay for family medical bills and school tuition. My cousin Tanya testified that I'd been acting strange that semester, drinking more and seeming paranoid about men. "Alice has been through a lot at college," she said, not meeting my eyes. She's always been dramatic, and sometimes I think she gets confused about what really happened. The prosecutor, an overworked public defender named James Mitchell, did his best with what little physical evidence remained. But without the wine bottle, without witnesses to the actual drugging, without any memory of assault, the case relied heavily on my testimony against an entire family's denial. Uncle Austin took the stand in his own defense, and I watched him work the jury like he worked every room he'd ever entered. Charming, humble, devastated by the accusations. He spoke about watching me grow up, about being proud of my dreams, about how confused and hurt he was by these false accusations. "I love my niece," he said, his voice breaking at just the right moment. "I would never hurt her. Never. The fact that she believes I would, it breaks my heart." When the jury returned after 3 hours of deliberation, I knew what they were going to say before the foreman opened his mouth. Not guilty on all charges. Not guilty didn't mean innocent, but in the eyes of my family, it meant vindication. Uncle Austin was welcomed back into the fold like a conquering hero, while I became the cautionary tale about what happens when you make false accusations against family. I finished nursing school on student loans after my family's financial support mysteriously dried up. I moved across the country, built a career, went to therapy, and tried to rebuild a life that felt authentic rather than performative. I dated carefully, married a good man named David who understood why I couldn't go home for holidays, and slowly learned to trust again. Meanwhile, Uncle Austin's success continued to soar. He expanded his business empire, married Hannah in a lavish ceremony I wasn't invited to, and had 2 beautiful daughters who became the family's new darlings. His social media was full of motivational quotes about overcoming adversity and the importance of family loyalty. For 10 years, I watched from a distance as he lived the life of a respected businessman, devoted husband, and loving father. The family rarely mentioned me, and when they did, it was with sad headshakes about how I'd never gotten over my problems, and still refused to apologize for nearly ruining Austin's life. I built my own chosen family. Friends who believed me. Colleagues who respected my work. A husband who never questioned why I didn't want to discuss my childhood. Slowly, painfully, I learned that my worth wasn't determined by blood relatives who'd chosen a predator's reputation over my safety. But late at night, I sometimes wondered if he'd done it to anyone else. If there were other girls who'd been too scared to speak up, or who'd been silenced more effectively than I had been. The thought haunted me, but I had no way to prove it and no family support to pursue it. Until last month, when everything changed again. The call came at 11:47 p.m. on a Tuesday. I was in bed reading when my phone lit up with a number I didn't recognize. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. "Alice? This is Hannah. Austin's wife." Her voice was shaky, thick with tears and something that sounded like terror. I sat up immediately, my heart racing. "Hannah, what's wrong? Is someone hurt?" "I found something," she whispered. "God help me, I found something and I don't know what to do. I need to talk to you. I need to tell you. I need to tell you that I believe you. I always believed you." 2 days later, we met at a coffee shop in her city. The woman who walked in looked nothing like the confident teacher who'd testified for Uncle Austin 10 years ago. Hannah was thin, hollow-eyed, with the careful movements of someone who'd learned to make herself small. "He's been drugging me," she said without preamble, her hands shaking around her coffee cup. "For years. I thought I was losing my mind. I'd have a glass of wine with dinner and wake up the next morning with no memory of the night before. I'd find bruises I couldn't explain, feel sore in ways that didn't make sense." My chest tightened with a familiar rage. "Hannah, I'm so sorry. I tried to warn. I know. God, I know, and I'm so ashamed. I testified against you. I helped destroy your credibility because I was too blind to see what he really was." Tears were streaming down her face now. "But I found his stash. Bottles of liquid Rohypnol hidden in his home office. And I found videos, Alice. Videos of me, of other women, all of us unconscious." She pulled out a flash drive with trembling fingers. "There are dozens of them. Some going back over 15 years. I think there's one of you from that Thanksgiving." The coffee shop seemed to tilt around me. After 10 years of being called a liar, of questioning my own memories, I was finally going to have proof. "What do you want to do?" I asked quietly. "I want to take him down," she said, steel creeping into her voice. "I want to make sure he never hurts anyone else." The video was worse than I'd imagined and exactly what I'd feared. Uncle Austin had set up a hidden camera in that guest bedroom, and it captured everything from the moment he brought me upstairs until Brandon's interruption. Watching myself unconscious and helpless, seeing his hands on my body, hearing him whisper promises about what he planned to do when he came back later. It was traumatizing and validating all at once. This is why he was so confident during the trial, I told Detective Rodriguez, who was now leading a task force investigating what had become a massive sexual assault case. He knew there was no physical evidence because Brandon interrupted him before he could finish what he started. The flash drive contained evidence of at least 37 different women over 15 years. College students, co-workers, family friends, and even some of Hannah's teacher colleagues who'd been invited to dinner parties. Uncle Austin had been drugging and assaulting women systematically, documenting his crimes like trophies. The most heartbreaking discovery was that 2 of the victims were his own employees, young women who'd trusted him as a mentor and father figure. They'd both quit suddenly over the years, and now we understood why. "We're going to need you to testify again," Detective Rodriguez explained. "This time, you'll have an entire team of prosecutors and all the evidence we need to put him away forever. But first I had a phone call to make." "Hello, Mama," I said when my mother answered, my voice steady despite the tears streaming down my face. "I need you to sit down. We need to talk about Uncle Austin, and this time I have proof." The silence on the other end of the line stretched for what felt like eternity. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely a whisper. "Oh my God, baby. What have we done to you?" 10 years late, my mother was finally ready to listen to the truth. Uncle Austin's arrest made national news. The golden boy who'd fooled an entire family and community for decades was finally exposed as the predator I'd always known him to be. The evidence was overwhelming, undeniable, and devastating to everyone who'd supported him. He tried to make a deal, offering to plead guilty to lesser charges in exchange for a lighter sentence. When that failed, he sent Hannah to beg me not to testify, promising to confess if I'd ask for leniency. The audacity was breathtaking. After destroying my relationship with my family and nearly destroying my life, he still thought he could manipulate his way out of consequences. "Tell him I said no," I told Hannah firmly. "Tell him that every woman he hurt deserves to see justice served completely." The trial lasted 6 weeks. This time I had 36 other women standing with me, all of us ready to tell our stories. Uncle Austin's charm couldn't protect him from video evidence, DNA matches from items in his trophy collection, and the testimony of victims spanning nearly 2 decades. He was sentenced to 45 years in prison without the possibility of parole. My family struggled to process their complicity in his crimes and their betrayal of me. Some relationships couldn't be salvaged. The damage was too deep, the wounds too old. But my mother, my grandmother, and a few cousins began the long process of making amends, starting with public apologies and moving toward genuine accountability. "I failed you in the worst possible way," my mother said during one of our first real conversations in a decade. "I chose his reputation over your safety, and I'll regret that for the rest of my life." It wasn't easy, and it didn't erase the 10 years of exile and pain. But it was a start. Today, I run a support group for survivors of family sexual assault, helping other women navigate the unique trauma of being betrayed by both their attacker and the family members who chose silence over safety. My husband David and I are expecting our first child, a daughter we'll name Hope, because sometimes that's all we have and sometimes that's enough. Uncle Austin sends letters from prison, still trying to manipulate, still claiming he's the victim. I don't read them anymore. His time for causing me pain is over, and my time for living without fear has finally begun. The golden boy's crown has finally tarnished, and the truth has set us all free. What's your take? Do you think Alice was justified in walking away, or should she have tried to work things out? Drop your thoughts below. I love hearing different perspectives on these messy family situations. And if stories like this get your blood pumping, smash that subscribe button for more drama that'll make you question everything.